Ted Hartke has come all this way, and so I want you to hear from somebody that has actually lived among turbines.
Okay. Microphone in the clicker.
Hey, Dave, do you have
So, do you want to do it yourself? You just click right there, or I can do it for you.
All right. Good evening, folks. I didn't waste my whole trip over here. On the way here, I stopped in Bloomington Normal. I did some surveying to lay out a new fire station there. After this is over, I'm going to smoke it to champagne, and I'm going.
I can't hear you back here.
When I get the champagne tonight, I think I'll get there by midnight. That's when I need to be in place to help them set the beams on the bridge at the interchange. My job is to take that curved bridge and make sure that when they balance a beam on top of the pier, that the tips of that curve are just perfect. So in about a week from now, they can take up the gate beam. Think of it as a keyway. It has to fit perfect, and they only have a short period of time to fit it in because it's they're going to have the traffic closed on I-57. So my work is important tonight, but that happens about an hour and a half from now. So I'm going to go quick and just tell you what happened, okay? So I took my slides, compressed them down to a short thing. I grew up on a hog farm in Teutopolis, Illinois. My brother and my dad still farm. And I went to college, became an engineer. My wife went to SAU, that's where I met her. We got finished down there. She did a master's degree. We moved to Champaign where she did a PhD. And then we moved to this house I'm about to show you when she finished a PhD, and we lived there for a while. And now she runs the division where she got her PhD degree from. So her and I are doing well, and I wanted to come here tonight. As I sat over here in the front row, I got here kind of late. I want to tell you I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed. I got a Windfarm was coming to my community, and I thought the stuff that you guys are hearing tonight was bullshit. I didn't take it seriously. I had the attitude that this isn't something that's going to happen to me. I'm really tough. I'm really professional, and I'm not weak. I'm going to be just fine. Okay, so what I tell you, I want you to take it to heart. It still hurts pretty bad that what we went through, so I'm going to keep it together, hopefully, okay? So on this slide, I'm sure they'll give handouts of these things. You can see it later. It has my old address. One of the items on this list here is I had a good connection with the wind farm when it was built. As soon as they turned on the turbines, we were having sleep issues. I would call or text the site manager. They put me in touch with the operators who were running computers from, I think, in Elgin, Illinois. They could control the turbines. And on 51 nights, we called with sleep issues or complaints, and they turned off the turbines 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 turbines on 51 times. Looking back, I realized I was asking permission to sleep in my own house. We couldn't sleep, and the issue was something that was affecting my whole family. Okay, I'm going to try to get through these. This is my wife and kids. This was Christmas 2012 in my mom and dad's basement. The wind farm at this point was almost fully constructed, only like a week or 2 weeks before they started production in the wind farm, okay? That's Sophia, that's myself, my wife, and my son Philip. So when the wind farm was coming to our direction, I was told these things are real noisy, and they're going to be close to your house, and you should be concerned. So we took my son to Bloomington. North of Bloomington, there's a Methodist church camp. On the way, we drove past Twin Groves Wind Farm, which was mentioned earlier in some appraisal study. We stopped here, and pulled up to the end of the access road to the turbine. It was running. There's a tractor about a mile away. You could hear the tractor. You could just hear the turbine. I turned to my wife and said, "See, we have nothing to worry about. This thing is fine." And she was still worried. I assured her that everything was going to be okay. The kids got bored instantly almost, and it was time to go to church camp, okay? So we sat there for maybe 15 to 20 minutes is the time I spent visiting the turbine and thought everything was cool. Don't make the stupid mistake to go visit a turbine and say, "Mr. Hartke's full of crap," because I did this to myself and made this mistake, okay? These turbines are much smaller. They're 400 foot tall. That's a blade diameter of just over 1 acre. So think about a 1 acre blade circumference area, okay? So here's my house down here. We have a pointer. There's my house. This is not a doctored photo. My wife took this photo from Illinois Route 49. This turbine right there is 495 feet to the top. This is a 2 acre blade sweep area. So this is double the area from a 400 foot tall turbine to a 500, or almost 495 foot tall turbine.
So it's still 200 feet smaller than you guys are dealing with.
Okay. So from January, February, March, April, part of May, they shut this turbine down and this next one down. And the other ones are behind me. I'm going to show that in the next slide. 51 nights when we asked. And in May 2013, on Mother's Day, they refused to shut them down any longer. Okay? That nearest turbine is 1,665 feet away. The next one is 3,147 feet away. If you ever want to ask a person and find out if they're really affected by a wind turbine, those people will tell you exactly the distance from their house to the nearest turbines. They always know the right distance. I've talked to people who say, "Ted, you're full of crap." I'll say, "How close is the turbine next to your house?" And they'll just blow out half mile. I'll go home, I'll measure it, and it's like 5,000 feet. Okay? They're not affected because it's far away, enough away from them, okay? So, outside my bedroom window, I turn and I'm looking southwest. The next turbine closest to me is this one right there with that red arrow. That's 2,225 feet away. And this is the turbine we believe caused us the most troubles because it's southwest of us. We are downwind in the exhaust of the turbine. I think when you're downwind from it, that's where you're going to feel the uneven air pressure pulse from when these blades, at nighttime especially. The ground wind's pretty calm, but at nighttime when these blades get to the upper level, that's where they're catching that upper wind. That's why turbines have to be taller nowadays to get more power out of them because it needs to reach those upper wind. When it reaches the upper wind, those blades will flex backward because they're getting a bunch of air pressure pushed against them. And when they wobble backwards and wobble back forwards, and the flex happens both directions, that lets out a little air pressure pulse. Someone talked about fans not being in sequence. Well, that's because this turbine is wobbling, and that thump or subwoofer bass that sounds like a car door closing or your front door opening. If you've ever, here's a good analogy, if you're ever at home relaxing and you hear a car door bang shut on your driveway, you instantly go, "I better go get a shirt on," or get pants. That's the feeling of, oh crap, unsettling feeling that you get sometimes in your home. The same goes for like a bump in the night. Mothers will know this more than dads maybe. When your child gets up at night and they're falling in bed or making noise in the bathroom, you wake up with a little bit of alarm feeling. And that's the feeling or the impulse that you get. It's kind of like an emergency is happening. And one more thing, at times we'd be in bed asleep and it sounds like someone just opened and came in my front door. It's kind of like a bang or a thump or a whoosh. It's hard to describe the noise. It's just an unsettling thing, and it wakes you up from deep sleep. At other times, you do go to bed, and it's 10, 11 o'clock at night, and this upper wind action's happening. You can lay in bed, you can hear them running outside a little bit, and you're trying to fall asleep, and you're plenty tired, but you can't relax that last 5% to be able to go to sleep. If you have a neighbor or a police officer come to your house at 10:30 and say, or 11, and I tell them I can't sleep, they don't think it's a big deal. They're not affected. Well, that's because they're not trying to fall asleep and get to that last 5% of relaxation to go to bed. This meeting tonight's already causing sleep deprivation for you people. Okay? So, this next turbine, I want you to remember this one, 3,454 feet away. On 2 of those nights, we had all 4 of these turbines shut down, all the way out to 3,454 feet away. This is a serious thing. We were not sleeping. The closest 3 were turned off, and we had that 4th one turned off on 2 occasions. Okay, let's see. I don't think there's anything else here on this slide that I need to talk about. Here's a close-up of my house, standing right in my front driveway. This window here, my dog slept in the garage right over here. My son Philip's bedroom was that window there. My daughter's room was above my room, and my wife and I's room is right here. Okay? There are no trees or blocks, nothing blocking anything between my house and the wind turbines. That's the turbine behind my house, 1,665 feet away. All right, this is a view from my backyard, same type of deal. And it come to be about July. Kids were upset. It was a very noisy night. I would say this is about 10 or 10:30 p.m. or so. And it was noisy in the kids' bedrooms. My daughter, we'd already done the bedtime routine, bath, read a book, cuddle, and get her all relaxed and rub her back and all those things that parents do with little babies. And she was still agitated. It was noisy. And she said, I have an idea. She jumped out of bed, ran to a toy box that we had upstairs, and she pulled out these Hello Kitty headphones. And she said, can I wear these to bed? I want to tell you, when that happened, I thought of, this is my house. This is not a tractor pull or a demolition derby. My kids shouldn't have to wear headphones to bed. And this was her doing this, not me. And this was a serious thing. I almost was too sad to take a photo, but I did. And months later, I finally showed this for the first time to people. This is a tough thing to show people. And what's even, another difficult thing is, this thing was on the internet. If you type in my child's name, this is the photo that comes up. Okay? This is a bad deal. Okay? This is her bedroom window, and that's the turbine that's only 1,665 feet away. About 1,700 feet away from her window here. Okay? Okay. So all summer and starting in the fall, my wife and I would wake up in the mornings or early, late at night, whatever. Both of our kids had moved themselves from their bedrooms down into the living room, and one would be on the couch and one would be on the chair. And they were doing this a lot, probably most of the time. And one night I heard them moving around. I went to check on them, and I sat in the living room with the kids. They're sleeping. And I said to my wife, I said, you know what? It's actually quieter and nicer in the living room than it is in our bedroom. So on one night, I took just the top mattress, and I drug it into the living room with our kids, and we slept on the floor with that mattress just on the floor just inside the living room. And we slept there for just a couple days. And then the weekend came, and I took all of our beds, took them apart, I brought them all down in the living room. I took living room furniture and shoved it in my bedroom. And this is how we lived from about October. I gotta think here what this was. I'm gonna go back. This has happened in about October. We lived like this from October until Christmas weekend. There's a reason why your children have their own bedrooms and the parents have their own bedrooms. It's for privacy, for intimacy, and having husband and wife relationships. And living like this is extremely hard on your marriage. I don't know what people did in one-room houses back in the day. That had been very tough living, and this was extremely stressful in my marriage. On top of that, both of our kids were having very little sleep. My wife and I are arguing a lot. We're very grumpy parents. This is extremely hard on your children. There's probably things that we punish them for that we should have never punished them for. They grew up fine. It wasn't terrible. They're great. But my wife and I feel like we were bad parents. Another thing you feel like you're bad parents is when you can't protect your kids from anything that's going on. It's out of your control, but that's a sign that you need to get your kids out of a bad situation. Whether there's some terrible things going on at school and you need to pull them out of the school or getting bullied, whatever. This is us getting bullied as a whole family, and we didn't have our stuff together enough to realize that we were going downhill. Okay? My brother came and visited me around Thanksgiving. He came in my house and came in my living room, and he said, "What is going on here? Why are these beds in here?" And I said, "Rich, this is how we've been sleeping for a month, and this is the quietest room in the house." And he said, "Ted, I didn't know it was that bad." And this is my own brother that said this to me. I have another funny story about him. I'll save it till later. Okay? The next one's funnier. This is pretty sad. My own brother, heard me complain about it, but just didn't know it was this bad. I'm just not a complainer, I suppose. All right, this is a quick little aerial photo of my house, which has the star. This is the orientation of the wind turbines. I throw this into my thing to show it really depends on your house situation compared to the turbine. I think if that turbine's straight north of you, you have less issue than it is if it's straight just downwind. And if you're in the exhaust of that air pressure pulse coming off the turbine most of the time, I think that's pretty rough. Now, I was talking to a lady here, and she said, these guys, these experts, they're just full of crap. I don't believe this. She did not believe this because she knows people who are just fine in the wind farm where she's from. I want to tell you right now, these people right here, my neighbors to the northeast of me, they thought I was really crazy because they had no problems. These folks had no problems either. But another guy that did have problems was Dave Miles. He's my neighbor right here in this blue blob. That's his house. His daughter had the same issues as we did, and he slept in different rooms in his house because his bedroom was not a place he could sleep. And he's testified to that also. So I want you to compare, these guys are fine, but Dave and I were not fine. And in small letters, he was almost the same distances that I was from the turbine. And my thing on this is, if you're close enough to the turbine, that thumping pressure wave probably goes over you. You're not in the midst of it. But as you get further away from the turbine, that sound or air pressure pulse, that thing will cone out and get wider. And since I was just in the sweet spot, at the right spot, I think I was taking the brunt of it here. And maybe by the time it got to my neighbor, it dissipated from my real bad turbine, and he's being closer, and it's just literally going over his head like a bad joke, okay? So I think that has a lot to do with situations as well. My house is also in a little bit of a valley compared to my neighbors. I was lower elevation than they were too. So maybe it was getting funneled into my valley where my house was. Okay. While this was all going on, my company and my guys, we did the State Farm Center in Champaign. I'm sure you guys have been there and seen this building. This is partway through the construction, very early stages before we dug the massive hole to expand the building, which you can't really see because it's underground. So I thought of this word, ingenious. And ingenious is a clever, original thought or an inventive thing that you imagine, and you can build this. This is a very ingenious building, if you want to call it that. I'm going to show you something that my daughter did. We were living in a double wide mobile home. We left our home Christmas weekend 2013. And this is just a few months later, March 2014. We're living in a double wide trailer 8 miles away from our house. Okay? We went to the dentist. After the dentist, we went to my office. I had 3 things for her to mess with: a red pen, a yellow highlighter, and a black pen. That's all I had to give her. You just sit in this desk and do something. She drew this. Very good picture. Even has a little tiny door on the bottom of the turbine. Okay? Almost life size. The blades are a little bad. She was 7 years old. And that was sheet 1, left-hand side of the page. Second page, she wrote this by Sophia Ruth Hartke. You may think wind turbines are good, but when you have 50 by your home, you can't sleep in your own room, and you try to sleep, but you can't because of the wind turbine's engine noise. I had to move into a mobile home because my mom and dad and brother, plus me, couldn't sleep. And right there is engine noise. Not ingenious, okay? I looked at this for a long time. This image is on the internet. Somehow this piece of paper has been disassociated with the picture, okay? And this shows a little child being a truth teller. I'm here to tell you, this is not me putting her up to this. We were trying to minimize and protect our kids from this from happening, and they were still dealing with it. Okay? All right. So on that Christmas weekend, I woke up in the double wide trailer. We did not have a Christmas tree because we moved like 2 days before Christmas. I wanted to go get a newspaper because it probably had Christmas ads or something, or mail. And I went back to my house. And when I got there, I had never seen my house from this angle. It was brand new snow that just happened on Christmas snow. It was amazing. I looked at my house, and there was not a set of paw prints from my dog, not any tire tracks from me, no four-wheeler trails. I learned that God invented snow for children and pets to tear it up. That's what I'm looking at here. This hurt me pretty bad not to be able to live in my house. So we kept our house. Let's see here. We put it up for sale spring of 2013. And we kept it for sale from spring of 2013. And we sold it in September of 2016. And it sold to an elderly woman who attended church across the road from my house. And she was a leaseholder with, I think, 3 wind turbines on her farm ground. She thought these things were great. She didn't care or ask much about my situation. She just wanted to have my house close to her childhood church, and that was it. And I finally unloaded the house. When you sell a house that you really didn't want to lose or get rid of, at the closing, I've sold other houses before because I moved up in the world. When I went and sold this house, I was living in a house that was 59 years older than this one. And it felt like the end of a funeral. It wasn't closure. It was just like sadness because we lost a lot of money, a lot of time. We were told that we were crazy, called liars. It was very rough. And a lot of that comes from the noise not affecting everyone. Imagine two people walking through a hayfield. One guy has bad allergies and one does not. And the guy with bad allergies is having a hay fever attack. He's coughing, can't catch his breath, his eyes are swollen shut. He almost needs drug out of this hayfield. And imagine his buddy who says, "You're a gosh dang liar. I don't believe you. I'm fine." And here you are being all big baby and weak. And I don't think two friends would do that to each other in a hayfield. And it's like if you don't see it, you don't believe it. Noise is very hard to describe. It's hard to live with when it's keeping you from being able to be functional in the daytime. I want to add one more thing. This is getting long, but I look back at my emails from 2013 that I wrote as the owner of my business. I wrote those emails. I've had a reason to go back and look at some once in a while to go see what we did on that job from years ago. I'll pull up an email from 2013. And I'm not an unintelligent person. My sentence structure, my words I used was very disjointed, incomplete sentences. I've run on sentences. I've put prices on things that were too high, and I felt like I screwed people over because I charged them too much on some projects. Other projects I bid way too low, and I'm surprised I didn't lose my ass on them, and by some way we still got through them all. Probably offset by the guys that got charged too much. And I'm embarrassed about that. When you look back, you don't realize how serious of a situation it could be. Later on, I would get to this part and tell people what's going on. I went to a place in Indiana. They said they wanted me to come talk to them, tell them what happened to us so it wouldn't happen to their community. That was cool. I drove around. I got there early. I drove around where the wind turbines were going to be built, and I saw a house, and it had a school bus parked next to it. And I thought to myself, what kind of people should we have live in wind farms? So, because by the state of Illinois law, a bunch of us are going to have to live in a wind farm, okay? So should ambulance drivers live in a wind farm? Should school teachers live in a wind farm? Should a school bus driver or your doctor or your engineer and your land surveyor, should they live in a wind farm and be sleep deprived all the time and make mistakes and they can't finish a sentence in a simple email to go do an easy job? It was people want to dismiss this, but I don't want you to. My inability or unknowing to go fight for my house, keep my neighborhood in good shape, I just didn't do it. I didn't know. I didn't think this was going to happen to me, of course. It's a bad deal. I don't even know how many more slides. That was it. Okay. I'm kind of an open book. I'd be happy to take questions. You guys have stayed here all night. The American Legion is very good to have let you use this building. I'm a big American Legion supporter.